Welcome, everybody, to the weekly HDI Local Chapters live stream show. I'm your host, Tom Wilk. And before we get started, let's talk about our show sponsor, Robert Half Talent Solutions. Robert Half is exactly that, a talent solutions firm that provides IT talent, professional IT people to businesses and organizations that need to keep their businesses running. You can check them out at roberthalf.com/technology. You can find things like people to hire for positions. If you're looking for a job, you can find companies advertising to find people. There's also a lot of other good things out there like career advice, interviewing advice, salary guides. They have a salary guide. And I was just talking to a Robert Half person today. They're going to be coming out with an update because this crazy time we're in with the talent pool is just changing everything, just huge. All right, so let's get started with the show. I'm just so excited to get started with the show today. Our guest today is Gregg Gregory, and if you didn't hear us talking in the pre-show, he is a majorly big icon in the HDI community. He does a lot of good work, a lot of good knowledge giving and everything. So let me tell you a little bit about Gregg. He earned his certified speaking professional designation in 2004. His client list includes organizations such as Lockheed Martin, the University of Buffalo, Neurosurgery Group, and HDI chapters and conferences. He's spoken at those over the past decades. Gregg says that great teams do not focus on the best players. Great teams focus on the right players. Now, let me say getting to know Gregg, I met him a few years ago at one of the conferences through a buddy of mine who was actually one of his, I think, a repeat guest on your podcast, Gregg, Doug Raybould.
He's coming up next month.
Yeah. But, I found this interesting. You're an only child. You work by yourself, yet you teach teamwork. Okay, go figure. Let's get on with the show, Gregg. Welcome to the show.
Hey, a lot of people laugh at that, but it's so interesting when you think about being an only child. And yes, I work by myself. I mean, this remote work from home, I've been doing this for over 25 years. And it's so much fun. It does get lonely. But as an only child, people say, what do you know about teamwork?
Yeah.
Those that are listening right now, guess what? You probably had brothers and sisters. You had a built-in team. That's cool. I didn't have that built-in team. Now, Tom, did you have any brothers or sisters?
One brother.
One brother. How much? What's the age difference?
He's 3 years younger than me.
3 years younger. So, you probably picked on him quite a bit.
Sure. Yeah, I
did. We know you did. Okay. But here's the interesting part. When something from an outside force came in, you guys bonded together.
Yeah. No.
Yeah. Now, you see, that's the great thing that I miss in having siblings. But you see, those infightings that always go on, and I've got friends of mine now well into their adulthood are still having those infightings with their siblings. With me, with no siblings, I got to choose and pick who I wanted on my team. I got to choose who I wanted to play with. And that's such a big fact.
So like you're saying, you can pick your friends, but not your relatives, right? That kind of thing.
Yeah, I wasn't going there. I'll let you do that part. Okay. So there's no doubt it's a powerful tool there is being able to do that. So I've gotten to the point of sharing and working and everything else. I can still tell you, as a kid, I would take better care of my friends' stuff than I would my own.
True.
Because I wanted to make sure I kept the friendships. I nurtured that I've still got about 4 people that I've been friends with since high school. And we don't talk every week, but we talk somewhat, a couple times a year. A couple people I do talk to, once a week. But it's that friendship. One friend of mine back in high school, right after we got out of high school, gave us a plaque for my mom and dad and myself. And he said, friendship is the only cement that will hold the world together.
So true.
I still have the plaque.
Nice.
I still have the plaque. So teamwork is about building friendships. In the pre-show, we were talking about the HDI community and how it's like a family. It's friendships. I know Terry Ortiz is online. I think Doug's online. I think Roy Atkinson's online. All these people are just, they've become very good friends over the years. And, and then what's his name? Tom Wilk or something like that. He's also become a good friend.
Yeah, I want to say I did see Roy online. So, hey, Roy, shout out to Roy Atkinson. He talked about another HDI legend that has given so much to this community. So, All right, so all right, Greg, let's get on with the show. I told you it's a short show. I promise I won't cut you off at exactly the 15-minute mark. But talking about teamwork, you have what you have called the 6 elements to teamwork. So let's talk about that. Let's get into that. So talk to me about these elements. What's the first one?
Well, the first element is very simple. It really gets into really grasping the concept of vulnerability trust. Now, it's interesting when we stop and think about vulnerability trust, because there's predictive trust and there's vulnerability trust. We've got to have predictive trust, especially if you're a leader, you're going to be delegating. But vulnerability trust is something a little bit different. So I want to bring it up on the screen. If you can see it, great. And by the way, anybody's welcome to reach out to me at any time. We can chat about all this. Reach to me through LinkedIn. A lot of folks on the line now know how to find me. But when we talk about vulnerability trust, and you think about what vulnerability trust is, you've got to understand it's a space where leaders, managers, and team members can effortlessly, comfortably, and swiftly acknowledge, and here's the key part, without fear of retribution, their mistakes, their weaknesses, hiccups, failures, and their need for assistance. It is not a weakness. Being vulnerable is a strength. It's a strength. When I ask people all the time, would you be willing to help somebody else that needs help? I don't have a hand that doesn't go up. Everybody does.
Right.
Then I ask the question, how easily can you raise your hand and ask for help? And a lot of people can't do that.
Yeah, and I've learned, you're right, it is, and I've learned that through this community too. You're absolutely right. Absolutely.
You've got to be able to ask for help. There's no doubt about that.
Awesome. So, all right, so that's the first one. What's your next one?
Well, when you think about it, we got to move into the fact that it's a little bit different from vulnerability trust. We go from vulnerability trust, we got to understand there's something that most people think is a negative, and that is to have conflict. So when I'm talking about conflict here, I'm referring to specifically healthy conflict. Now, Tom, there is bad conflict. There's no doubt about
Absolutely.
that. Okay? Healthy conflict is when we focus in on the ideas. Okay? We can have spirited, even heated discussions as long as they're about ideas. The instant it turns personal.
Personal. Yep, I knew you were going to say that. Yep.
We're in trouble. We're in trouble. From there, now, by the way, we've got to have vulnerability trust. You've got to have the healthy conflict. From there, we can actually get something that I call complete buy-in or commitment. Often, way too often, people say, sure, I'm on board.
But not really.
Yeah, I'm on board, no problem. I'm there with you. Yeah, and they're not.
Yeah, and I think those two kind of go hand in hand too. The buy-in and the conflict, because it's one of the things I ask interview candidates now. Like, so you talk about working, you're a team player. Let's talk about how do you handle conflict when it comes to a project or a solution that needs to be had. So, because I want to hear their answer.
Right. I've even asked people some questions like, okay, tell me about a time where somebody disagreed with your possibility or your approach to something. How did you handle that? So we talk about specific things. Now, here's why that's so important. If we don't have trust, we can't have the healthy conflict, because people are going to feel like they're being backstabbed. And then we can't get buy-in if everybody's voice is not heard.
Yep.
So these three things are all intertwined any way we want to look at that. So that's the factors that you start to look at. These three elements are quintessentially the most challenging part of any team, and they are the components that we need to make them work.
So the next one's pretty interesting. What's your next one? Talking about team synchronization?
Synchronizing a team is very, very different. And that's what's very cool, because most people don't understand what it means to be synchronized. If I say let's get in sync, some people still think I'm talking about the 90s rock
The boy band.
The boy band. I'm sorry, I said rock band. How dare me say that? But no, if we think about synchronization, we got to be in sync with our colleagues on our team, but we also have to be in sync with other teams. Do I dare say the word, Tom?
Go for it.
DevOps.
Yep.
Dev and ops. They need to be in sync.
They do. You're right. Absolutely.
Do you understand how many times in the last week I have been on a company's websites and I have no idea what the dev people were doing because I don't even understand how to use this. Okay? And that's me from not even a novice. I'm at the infancy stage when it comes to this on that part of it. But they need to be in sync. So have a little fun with me on this one, okay? When we stop and think about engines, boats on a small boat, check this picture out. In this picture, these engines are synchronized. I mean, don't get lost with the beautiful sunset.
I was going to say, I was looking at the sunset, so yeah.
A friend of mine last fall took this picture, actually probably in January, February on the Chesapeake Bay. And I'm going out with him this year on his boat a couple times, and we're going to take some more pictures like this. But if you look at these engines, they are perfectly synchronized, meaning both engines are running within about 50 RPMs of each other. Now, that means that they're putting out an equal wake, and you can see that equal wake going behind.
Yes.
And that's real important. Now, when an engine's not in sync, you start to feel a little vibration. Okay, you will start to feel that, and it starts to, sometimes that vibration can get really, really tough. And then look what happens to the water behind you. It just turns. And that's not where you want to be with a team.
No.
It's not where you want to be with a team. It's so critical we start to understand the power and how this all starts to come together. We understand all of that. Because now as we go back and look at it, we start to think vulnerability, trust, we've got to have it. Now that trust means up and down the chain of command, across the line. I've got to trust my colleagues. I got to feel comfortable that they're not going to backstab me.
Yep.
I mean, that goes a long way. Then we got to make sure that we can have the conflict across the lines. Then we got to make sure that everybody's buying in. Because here's the key on this. Once we do those three, then we can get our engines start to be running together. Everybody's working together. Then we can get to the next one. And that's critical. Mutual accountability. What do I mean by mutual accountability? Let's be clear. You can't have mutual accountability if there's not leadership accountability.
Yes, I agree.
That's true. That's important. Beyond that, we've got to hold each other accountable for everything. If I hold Tom accountable for something and we don't have a complete buy-in on Tom's part, because maybe I didn't listen to Tom and we didn't have good, healthy conflict, and that's going to go back to the lack of trust. We've got to understand how all these things fit together. Hey, Tom, question for you.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I'm throwing you a curveball here. Actually, it might even be a knuckleball. Baseball season is back.
Yes, it is.
So here's a question. Have you ever taken a watch apart?
Wow, it's been a while, but yes.
Yeah. What do you see inside of that watch?
All kind of moving parts if you're talking about the old style parts.
Yeah, the old style. I'm not talking about these little battery things.
Yeah, like all the little gears and the springs and yeah.
Yeah, and they've got to be in sync, but they all work together.
And I know what happens when you put it back together not in sync.
Yeah. Here's another question. You ever put together a jigsaw puzzle?
Oh, yeah, not my favorite thing to do, but yes.
I know. I agree. I haven't done it in a long time. Okay, but here's a question. Have you ever tried to put together a jigsaw puzzle without looking at the box for the picture?
No.
Dr. Stephen Covey wrote a book years ago called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. You've got it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Here we go.
Yeah, get it the right way. Yep. Okay. I think it's, oh boy, you're going to test me now. I think it's habit number 4 is, no, is it 2? Begin with the end in mind.
Can make me look? Is that what you're trying to say?
I should know my habits by heart.
It's the habit 2.
Habit 2, begin with the end in mind.
Yep.
See, with a puzzle, that's what you're doing. And guess what? Teamwork is like a puzzle. You've got to see what you want to get to.
Ooh, I like that.
You got to see where you're going to get to. You got to know what your result is. And then you got the system to go together. I'm in the process of developing a brand new 8-point system to making teams work. It's a concept built off of these 6 elements here, but it's designed to make the teams rock. Yes, there's a pun intended there. Okay.
Which, by the way, I was always wondering, and we'll talk about the book later, but it's like Teams Rock. Wouldn't it be Team Rocks? And then I went, oh, that's an acronym. That's funny. Yes, I had to read the book, and I went, oh, okay.
Okay. So mutual accountability is critical. I can't hold people accountable if we haven't had the other steps. And that's kind of the elements that we start to really come together on like that. But let me ask you a question. What happens when no one's holding each other accountable?
Could be chaos. It could be tyranny. It could be, finger pointing. It's just a lot of bad stuff. Yeah.
But you see, you can't hold people accountable if you don't have the other 3 elements.
So true. Yeah.
That's what you've got to start to recognize. When you have all these elements in place, when you've got them in place, then and only then can you start to focus in on dynamic team-based results. And the key word is team-based results. I've said for several years now, the single greatest advantage any organization can have in today's complex workplace is teamwork. It is without a doubt the single greatest advantage. The CEOs that I've interviewed over the last 10 years also come up with some version of where they struggle with their business. And it is the health of the business. It is not the financial health. It is not the process health. It is, believe it or not, in the pandemic world, it is not even the supply chain health. They struggle, and what keeps them awake is some way, shape, or form is the health of their people. And again, not necessarily their physical health,
right? Yeah.
But it's the mental, the emotional health of how well everybody works together. And that's a key element. And the great part is, it doesn't matter where you are in the cog of the wheel. Remember we talked about the watch. It doesn't matter where you are. You can become and build the team and start to build it out. Even if it's a team of 3 or 4 people, you can build it. And when others start to take note of that team working really, really well, guess what? Others will take note.
Yes, exactly.
And that will be like a snowball rolling uphill.
Oh, yeah, that's...
You in Pittsburgh understand those snowballs that roll uphill.
We have a lot of hills and a lot of snow, yes.
But, so that's kind of the elements of it right there. I know it's a short show tonight, but I wanted to make a quick offer. If I could make a little offer for everybody.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, so so just so people know, we have it on the screen. Greg can't see it, but it's on the screen if you're watching the show. Greg is the owner of Teams Rock, and he does a lot of good stuff. Maybe you can share with us at the end. If people want to reach out to you for that. But I also see the book behind you, which, by the way, I do have my copy. It's the one you gave me a few years ago.
Yeah.
And the funny part is it's 2 sections, so one book. Mm-hmm. But 2 sections. So go ahead and talk about your book. So you have I understand you have a special offer for us?
I have a special offer through next week only for live stream listeners. So if you're listening live, you got a good shot. If you're picking this up on the recording after the fact, jump on it. Because here's what we've got. The book is It came out several years ago. This is not, by the way, Tom, you'll attest to this. This book is not a book that you're going to sit up next to the fireplace with your significant other and read passages from. No, this is not that kind of book. A lot of folks at HDI picked the book up. The comments that I've gotten from people are great. The book is about one team, one dream. It's by getting everybody on the same page. Indispensable teamwork skills to build a collaborative culture. And my podcast is all about teamwork, leadership, and culture. But I wanted to, and I'll talk about the podcast just in a second.
Yeah.
But I've got a special offer right now for the live stream audience, okay? Special pricing. The book is $29.95 on Amazon. Okay. I think it's $19.95 on the Kindle version. If you want the electronic version, that's cool too. But for those of you that want a hard copy, want to turn the page up, turn the page down, highlight the book. I highlight all the time. Okay. Through next Friday, we've got it. Just go to teamsrock.com/shop and you can get it for just $22. Okay. $22.
And that's awesome. And if you're listening to this show after the fact, though, it's still worth the $29.95. Trust me, it's a good.
You can go to Amazon really tomorrow and get it for $29.95 and have it next day delivery too. Yeah, so I'm not gonna promise you next day delivery, but so
I got mine same day when I bought it from the bookstore at the conference.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And we sold out at the LCO this year. We sold out.
I saw that. Yeah, I actually wanted to get. I think that's where I got this copy, was at that one, because I missed it the one before at the conference. So yeah, I think I actually bought the last copy, Greg, because I was waiting.
Right. You got the last one.
I didn't want to be the guy that was running the show and hog up the book, so I let everybody go, and then I might have cut a person or two off because it was the only one left. So.
So I want to talk just for a quick second, if I can.
Yeah.
If you like what we've talked about here tonight, there's some really cool stuff when we really start to think about it, and that is the podcast. Now, I've been doing the podcast. I started the podcast we actually went live in June of 2020. And some of the people that I've interviewed are kind of cool.
They really are. I was impressed.
I've interviewed a former Vietnam fighter pilot who spent 5.5 years in Vietnam in a prisoner war camp.
I was going to say, he was the one who was in prison camp, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Charlie Plum. And I've told Charlie's story over the years, and I had a great chance to interview him. And here's what he talked about. He was in prison camp from 1967 to 1973. During that time, a lot happened in this country. One of the things that was in essence of my childhood was the landing on the moon. So I asked Charlie how he heard about that. When did he learn about the landing on the moon? And his story is amazing. You're going to want to listen to that.
Yeah, you got to go back and definitely listen to that podcast. Yeah.
That's a cool. Then I've also interviewed Nicole Malikowski. She is the first female Thunderbird pilot in U.S. history.
Right, yeah. That was an interesting story, too.
A great quote from Nicole. Regardless, she learned this through the Thunderbirds. Nothing of significance is ever accomplished alone.
I remember
those are key elements. But then we interviewed a guy named Keaton Simons. Keaton Simons is a musical entertainer who's performed with Snoop Dogg and Brett Young. So he's got the spectrum that way. And he actually performs for us on the podcast.
Oh, I missed that one.
We've interviewed a number of CEOs. We've also interviewed people like Roy Atkinson, Pete McGarrihan, Rick Mims from the HDI community, and some other guy. What was his name? I believe it was Doug Raybould. And Doug's coming back next month. Again, anxious to talk to him about something new and exciting. And he's got an article coming out as well in Support World in a couple of weeks. So that's all going to kind of tie together for everybody. So I wanted to let you know you're welcome to get it. You can get it wherever you listen to podcasts, Spotify, iTunes. It does not matter where you pick them up. Just love to have you share the word. My goal is to help. That's what it's about. So with that, where are we at?
We are just about there. So I'd like to, Greg, thank you for being a guest on our show. Thank you for listeners for tuning in. This is a really good special episode. And as Greg mentioned in pre-show and at the beginning of the show, HDILocalchapters.org it's a really good organization to meet people and network. So check us out. You can become a member. You can find a local chapter in your area. You can also follow us on our Twitch, our YouTube, LinkedIn, and and if you, I was gonna say, Greg, we have your LinkedIn on there as well to connect with Greg. He'd be happy to connect with you. I know he graciously connected with me a few years ago through that guy. What was his name? Oh yeah, my buddy Doug,
or something like that.
Yeah, my buddy Doug. So I'd like to thank everybody. And by the way, we got to say this. What's that?
One of the things I do want to bring up here, if I can.
Yeah,
guys, what we talked about here is just not even touching the tip of the iceberg. It's the tip of the iceberg. If this is something you want, let's come in. Let's create a plan for your team. Let's make it work. Let's make your teams rock.
There we go. So, and by the way, I know my producers tell me I have to say this. I've got to get this in. I talk too much, but if you like what we have and you like Greg's this episode, definitely subscribe to our channels and like us. I guess all the YouTubers. I'm not a famous person on YouTube, Greg, but that's what they tell me to get results. So I got to say,
you don't have 2 million followers. Why am I here?
Not quite yet. Alrighty, sir. Thank you, and thank everybody. And we'll see you all next week.
Take care. By the way, do not have a good day. That's just being average.
I meant to ask you. I love your saying there. Yep.
Go out and make today an excellent, an exceptional day.
Thank you, Greg.